Welcome to our channel. At 1,000 subscribers, we will post a special series of videos for you. Enjoy watching.
The citadel of glass floated like an enormous crystalline spider in the heart of the Tellarian rift, its spires and buttresses refracting the pale light of 3 distant stars into a cascade of prismatic colors. From below, the outer ring of docking bays gleamed with countless vessels, warships of obsidian alloy, sleek transports, ornate couriers etched with luminescent glyphs. An unrivaled the splendor of the inner atrium, where history's greatest feats of engineering had been displayed as monuments to the Dominion's power. Today, however, the atrium hosted a spectacle unlike any before. Tens of thousands of spectators, alien nobles in silken robes, starship captains bristling with cybernetic implants, military dignitaries bearing medals older than some civilizations, packed the concentric terraces. Hovertrams hummed overhead, beaming the scene to distant worlds. And at the very center, atop a dais carved from pure diamond, stood the alien Emperor Palorix. Palorix's form was awe-inspiring. 8 slender limbs extended from a triangular torso sheathed in translucent carapace, each limb tipped with iridescent claws that could tear starship hulls apart or coax the most delicate nanofiber circuit back into alignment. Around his head, a crown of energy filaments hovered, pulsating softly with his thoughts. His eyes, dozens of them, like facets of a gemstone, swept over the crowd with casual superiority. Before him hovered the heart of the Celestis Prime, a core stabilizer unlike any other, floating midair within a transparent containment sphere. Ribbons of pure energy coiled around its spindle, but a single thread flickered, sputtered, and collapsed into darkness. With each failure, the stabilizer's glow dimmed, bringing the entire atrium to a hush. Palorix raised a slender arm, and a ripple of telepathic warmth spread across the crowd. "Behold," he intoned, voice like shattering ice, "the flaw in my greatest vessel. Without correction, the Celestis Prime will drift into the abyss of unbeing, and with it all who sail upon her." A murmur of shock swept the terraces. The Celestis Prime was Palorix's flagship, a marvel of quantum resonance drives, graviton funnels, and particle stream armaments. It had led successful campaigns against the Zera invaders, charted the storm-bound corridors of the Vex frontier, and resupplied doomed colonies at the edge of reality itself. Its loss would be catastrophic. He let the tension mount until the container's humming was the only sound. Then, with a flick of his wrist, he shattered the containment sphere with invisible force. Gears spun, circuits flashed, and the stabilizer plummeted onto a mirrored platform, its inert mass threatening to rattle apart. Palorix's many eyes glinted with amusement. "I offer you this challenge. Repair the core stabilizer." He paused, letting the weight of his words resonate. "Fix the ship, and it is yours. Command the Celestis Prime as you will." He leaned forward, a deliberate smirk curving his triangular maw. After all, even the human janitor did it in 5 minutes. Silence roared through the hall. The assembled engineers, each a master of 1,000 disciplines, exchanged incredulous looks. Then their debates began. Was this some trick of entropic sabotage? A gambit to weed out spies? Or perhaps a test of loyalty to flush out dissent? High Engineer Dalvus, whose cybernetic modifications allowed him to interface directly with any machine, stepped forward. His voice, sharp as grinding steel, cut through the buzz. "Your Majesty, the stabilizer's substructure has been protected by layered quantum cryptoseals. No one but you can unlock them." "Then unlock them." Palorix's challenge was final. Dalvus planted his hand on the platform. Motes of energy from his fingertips probed the stabilizer's hull. Diagnostics flickered. Seal level alpha must be bypassed. Seal level beta is entangled with whale field encryption. Subroutine sigma corrupted. He tapped a holopad strapped to his wrist, calling up complex glyphic formulas. This will take time. Palarix tapped the dais with one claw. You have 1 hour. His eyes narrowed. Or perhaps you prefer the grace period of 5 minutes, like the janitor. The mention of the janitor, an unremarkable human whose name was whispered only in uncertain rumors, sent a ripple of disbelief through the crowd. To think a mere cleaner could outpace the Empire's finest. It was unthinkable. Dalvus bowed stiffly. As you command. He retreated to the back of the dais, where a phalanx of servo drones descended, attaching themselves to the stabilizer's casing. Plasma welders sparked. Sonic scalpels hummed. Holoscreens flared with diagnostic runes, elliptic curves of whale fields, hyperbolic calibrations, and tropic decay graphs. Yet as minutes passed, every attempt ended in failure. At T-minus 58 minutes, the stabilizer flickered violently, tossing sparks that wounded 2 drones. At T-minus 48, the quantum cryptozeals re-energized in unpredictable patterns. At T-minus 30, the entire atrium shuddered as a backup failsafe triggered. Swarms of nanite swarms attempted to disassemble any tool that came near. Between the terraces, murmurs grew frantic. They'll never do it. It's a trap. The Emperor must surely have baited us. In a shadowed alcove at the rear of the hall, Arcia King stood with her mop bucket slung over one shoulder. Her uniform was immaculate as any janitor's could be, but her eyes shone with a strange calm. To her, every mechanism was a puzzle. Every puzzle contained a hidden key dot. She watched as Davlos and his team cursed under their breath, recalculating algorithms with frantic speed. She noted how the whalefield encryption interacted with the failsafe nanites, saw how the subroutine Sigma's corruption was not random but a deliberate masking maneuver. In 5 minutes, she could have it solved. In fact, she had been planning. And ever since she first laid eyes on the core, Davos wiped sweat from his metallic forehead. We're detecting a secondary encryption layer, an override that resets after each failure. He slammed his fist on the holopad, sending the display into static. Engineers flinched. I cannot. Palarix raised a hand in his telepathic. Voice rippled across the hall again. Time. His staff glowed. The platform retracted, lifting the stabilizer into his telekinetic grip. You have failed. But the challenge remains. He descended the dais with deliberate grace, the stabilizer clutched in one claw. Below, every eye followed him. As he strode toward the exit ramp, the stabilizer's lights pulsed dimly. Then, from the back, a single voice called out, Your Majesty? Palarix paused. The voice was small, unassuming, yet it carried across the entire hall. He turned. At the fringe of the crowd, Arcia King stepped forward, mop in hand, bucket glinting at her side. She moved with quiet confidence, her uniform spotless and her stride unwavering. Palarix's many eyes fixed on her. A ripple of curiosity passed through the spectators. If the finest engineers had failed, could this uninvited janitor succeed? And if she did, he permitted her approach. The atrium held its breath. And so, with the Empire's greatest minds silenced by pride, and the Emperor himself intrigued by this lone human, the true contest began. What Arcia King saw in those tangled circuits, and how she would unravel them in mere minutes, remained to be witnessed by all. Arcia King had spent nearly 4 weeks in the Citadel of Glass, tucked away in Service Level C, where the fluorescent lights glowed faintly green and the corridors hummed with the distant thrum of fusion reactors. By day, she polished the gleaming obsidian floors of the Imperial galleries. By night, she swept the lesser-used corridors where the shadows gathered like silent witnesses. No one paid her much heed, an unremarkable human, barely taller than the average Talarian child, dressed in the standard-issue gray jumpsuit and carrying a mop whose bristles were perpetually splayed. Yet, Arcia's eyes missed nothing. She noted the subtle strains in the alloy rails supporting the crystal chandeliers, the tiny flecks of conductive dust hidden beneath etched runes, even the occasional microfractures in the reinforced glass walls. Where others saw shimmer, she saw stress. Where others felt luxury, she sensed potential failure. A janitor's work, in her mind, was not mere menial labor but an intimate study of every edge, every seam, every whisper of aging machinery. When the Emperor's challenge echoed through the atrium, "Fix the stabilizer, and the Celestis Prime is yours." Arcia was on the 4th floor, replacing the last of the bioluminescent panels in the Hall of Records. She paused as the floor beneath her trembled, felt the resonance in her mop handle. She hurried down 2 flights of stairs, slipping through servant passages until she found herself in the lower vestibule, just beyond the security perimeter encircling the core stabilizer's platform. From here, she could see dozens of drone servo arms scarred with welding burns. Their welding torches paused mid-swing, and clusters of engineers arguing in clipped metallic tones. She recognized High Engineer Dalvas among them, surrounded by a holoscreen projecting spiraling fractals of cryptozeal encryption algorithms. Others pored over scans of subroutine Sigma's corrupted hexagons, scrubbing at the distortions in vain. As the timer on the Emperor's staff counted down 55 minutes, then 54, she felt a familiar flutter of excitement. The challenge was not brute force, but perception. She sighed softly, set her mop bucket down, and wiped her hands on a rag. A pair of security sentinels, tall, armored beings whose translucent skin revealed flickering bioplasma, glanced at her with mild curiosity. One raised a segmented claw, ready to halt her approach. But Arcia simply smiled and said, "I'm here to clean up the sparks." The guard hesitated. On a normal day, such a remark would earn her a sharp reprimand. But today, the atmosphere was charged with an odd mix of panic and fascination. The Emperor's challenge had inverted all normal rules. The sentinel lowered his claw. "Proceed," he grunted. She stepped onto the titanium plate line, careful to avoid stray droplets of coolant that carpeted the surface like frozen tears. The containment field for the stabilizer glowed faintly around her, rippling with high-energy arcs that crackled when they struck the plate line. Arcia paused, drew in a breath scented with ozone and radiation, and reached into her ragged pocket. She pulled out a small, handheld scanner, an old Terra model she'd swapped for a bundle of Janitor credits, and flicked it on. The scanner's display blinked. Multiple frequency overlays, encryption hums, nanite swarms in standby. She frowned and tapped a sequence on its battered keypad. Isolating subroutine Sigma. The scanner chirped, then displayed a warning. Failsafe lockout engaged. Her lips curved in a small grin. A lockout meant a key hidden, perhaps in plain sight. Arcia reached into her belt and withdrew what looked like an ordinary dust brush. Its soft, tapered bristles were woven from a rare polymer one she'd liberated from a discarded maintenance toolkit. She held it gingerly, as though handling a delicate organism, and ran its tip along the stabilizer's outer casing, brushing away microscopic crusts of oxidized coolant. Tiny motes of dust scattered in the containment field's glow. On the scanner, a new line of code flickered into view. Subroutine Sigma. Calibration .pulse equals 0.000. Arcia set the brush down and retrieved a slender tool, a looped nanofiber filament she twisted into shape herself. With deft fingers, she reached into a thin seam at the stabilizer's base and teased out a single calibration node, no larger than a fingernail. The engineers gasped behind her. Drones whirred, their welders reigniting at the slightest provocation. Energy spikes rippled across the plate line. But she worked swiftly, replacing the corrupted node with one she'd pre-programmed on Terra, a self-correcting, entropic nullifying module designed for an entirely different type of drive. As she locked the module into place, a latent protocol triggered. Nanite swarms designed to neutralize sabotage advanced in shimmering clouds toward her tool. Arcia didn't flinch. She dipped her brush into a vial of phase shift lubricant, another trophy from her side business in classified janitorial upgrades, and flicked it onto the swarms. They hesitated, clumped together, and then dissolved harmlessly. The holoscreens above them flickered wildly. The engineers stared wide-eyed as the stabilizer's coils began to pulse in seamless harmony. Each ribbon of plasma synchronized to a perfect oscillation, forming concentric waves of blue-green light. The scanner's display flattened the error curve into a steady line at exactly the 5-minute mark. No sooner, no later. The containment field receded. The stabilizer drifted free, its core humming with renewed energy. The crowd erupted in stunned silence, then thunderous applause. Even Dalva stood mute, his tungsten-enhanced jaw slack. Arcia stepped back, dropping her tools and brushing imaginary smears from her jumpsuit. She gave the stabilizer a modest nod and turned to leave only to halt beneath the Emperor's dais as a projection of his staff flared and his voice echoed through the chamber. You have succeeded, human janitor. The ship is yours. Her heart pounded so fiercely she thought it might shatter her ribs. Yet her face remained calm, thoughtful. For her, this was less an act of heroism than of curious exploration, as natural as sweeping the floors. Palarix descended in slow regal steps, the stabilizer pulsing gently in his grip. Around his head, the crown of energy filaments quivered in fascination. You see the world differently, he pronounced, addressing her and all assembled. Where others saw only complexity, you saw the simple truth. She inclined her head, mop in hand. Every layer conceals its own pattern, Your Majesty. Remove the distractions, and the heart reveals itself. A ripple of murmurs spread through the terraces. Engineers whispered to one another, scholars nudged generals, all seeking to understand how such a thing could be done. But Arcia needed no more than a moment's pause to acknowledge her triumph. Then, quietly, unassumingly, she turned away. Behind her, the assembled masses still reeled at what they had just witnessed. Beyond the atrium, the citadel of glass trembled ever so slightly, as if acknowledging a new power in its halls. And, somewhere in the recesses of the empire, a human janitor smiled to herself, certain that her greatest adventure was only just beginning. The imperial throne room lay silent in the wake of Arcia's triumph. Jewel-bright chandeliers suspended from vaulted glass arches bathed the chamber in a kaleidoscope of refracted starlight. Yet even their grand illumination seemed dim beside the radiance of the restored stabilizer, now cradled in the Emperor's taloned grasp. Palarix's crown of energy filaments pulsed with uncharacteristic warmth, its glow reflecting the Emperor's growing curiosity, and perhaps a dawning respect. As the crowd parted in silent deference, Palarix descended the dais and approached Arcia King. The assembly of nobles, engineers, and military commanders held its collective breath. What would the alien Emperor do with this human who had accomplished the impossible? Palarix lowered the stabilizer onto a hexagonal plinth at the room's center. Arcia King, he began, his voice rippling through the hall like distant thunder. You have bested my greatest minds and triumphed where my personal augments faltered. You possess a gift few in this galaxy can claim, the ability to discern the hidden flaw and reveal the elegant solution beneath. Arcia bowed her head in acknowledgement, brushing a stray lock of hair behind her ear. She had anticipated this moment but not its weight. Your Majesty, she replied quietly. A machine, no matter how advanced, is still bound by its creator's assumptions. I merely approached it as one would any tool, Inspect its mechanisms, identify its constraint, and relieve that tension. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, her words simple yet profound, cut through the complexity of imperial engineering like a nanet through a power grid. Palarix studied her for a long moment, as though weighing whether she was worthy of a prize so grand. Around them, hollow projections recorded every nuance. The trembling coils of the stabilizer, the glint in the Emperor's multifaceted eyes, the quiet dignity of the Janitor-Come-Engineer. Then Palarix gestured to the ceremonial chamberlain. With precise fluidity, a crystalline key etched with the sigils of the Palarix Dominion was presented on a silken cushion. Its facets shimmered like captured nebulae. The chamberlain proffered the key to Arcia. "This," said Palarix, "is the Seeker's Key. It grants command of the Celestis Prime. No vessel sails under its authority without bearing this mark. Take it, and the ship is yours to helm." When Arcia reached out, a chorus of astonished gasps swept the room. The Celestis Prime was more than a ship. It was a symbol of the Emperor's dominion, the unseen arbiter of wars, the relentless explorer of forbidden sectors, the mobile fortress from which Palarix held sway over countless worlds. For a human barefoot, wielding nothing more than a mop to assume its captaincy was an unprecedented upheaval. She held the Seeker's Key up to her eyes, admiring its craftsmanship. Each ridge and cavity formed an intricate lock pattern mapped to the Celestis Prime's bridge systems. Then, with deliberate calm, Arcia attached it to a loop at her belt. The key hummed, resonating with her pulse. A brief shock of exhilaration coursed through her. The Celestis Prime was now, in essence, a part of her. The Emperor inclined his head. "Before you depart, there is one more formality." He turned and tapped a glyph-etched panel on the plinth. Screens unfolded to display the Celestis Prime's bridge schematics, crew rosters, flight logs, and mission archives. "State your intent, Captain King. What course do you set forth for my flagship?" Arcia's gaze flicked over the display. Every chart, every dossier, bore the imprimatur of conquest, of suppression, of resource plunder. Yes, the Celestis Prime had changed the tides of battle and the fate of empires, and yet its storied history was marred by the very brilliance that had saved its stabilizer. A ship of such power deserved a purpose beyond mere demonstration of dominance. Drawing a measured breath, Arcia spoke. "Your Majesty, I request leave to sail beyond known space into the outer halo, to investigate rumored settlements of the exiles of Viridia. They were artists and philosophers exiled centuries ago when your ancestors feared their ideologies. If they still survive, their knowledge of fractal-based energy architectures could revolutionize starship design far more elegantly than brute force armaments." A wave of astonishment washed through the council. Few dared propose such a mission, least of all a human janitor who had just ascended to command the Dominion's mightiest cruiser. Palarix's eyes narrowed. His gaze became inscrutable as he weighed her words against the Empire's priorities. After a breathless pause, he nodded. "Very well. The outer halo it shall be. But know this, Captain King. The exiles have no love for the Dominion. You sail without reinforcements, relying solely on your wits, your crew, and the Celestis Prime." Arcia met his gaze steadily. "I accept those terms." She turned to face the assembly. "Will I require hosts of soldiers? No. I will seek diplomacy and understanding. I will listen to the exiles' stories and learn their ways. With their cooperation, we may forge a knowledge exchange that benefits both their people and yours." For a moment, silence reigned. Then, Dalvos the High Engineer stepped forward, shading his cybernetic eye with one gaunted hand. "Your Majesty," he said, "the exiles' fractal energy theories are speculative. Many in our labs consider them tangential to practical propulsion. They're deemed philosophical, not technical. Arcia shifted her weight, mop bucket left untouched at the chamber's entrance. Engineering is not divorced from philosophy, she countered. Those who designed the stabilizer implemented sleek solutions born of aesthetic intuition. True, innovation often lives at the intersection of art and science. To dismiss the exile's work outright is to discard potential breakthroughs. A murmur of agreement followed. A handful of younger engineers, those unshackled by decades of Imperial dogma, nodded and whispering excitedly. Even General Mordalis, seated among the military lords, leaned forward, interest gleaming in his ocular implant. The idea of advancing Dominion technology through novel avenues was tantalizing. Palarix observed the shift. Then, with a sudden movement, he raised his staff. So be it. The Celestis Prime departs at first light. Assemble your crew, Captain King, and prepare for jump through the Talarian Rift. You will have 2 hollow projectors on comlink duty, so I may watch your progress. He trailed off, as though hesitating over his final decree. And Janitor, do not disappoint me. Arcia allowed herself a small, confident smile. I intend to exceed your expectations, Your Majesty. With that, the chamber doors swung open. Arcia turned and strode across the polished marble floor, her feet echoing softly in the grand hall. Servant passages awaited her, where she would organize her small crew. A few daring engineers, an empathic alien linguist, a logistics officer fond of sending in supplies, and the AI specialist who worshipped her methods. As she passed Dalvas, he inclined his augmented head and offered a curt nod. You have shaken the foundations of my convictions, he said. I would be honored to serve under your command, Arcia beamed. Then let us set a new course, one of discovery, cooperation, and ingenuity. She picked up her mop bucket and moved on, leaving behind the stunned assembly and a newly unmade empire. The chamber doors closed behind her. In their wake, the Emperor watched the empty floor, his crown's filaments dimming to a thoughtful pulse. Somewhere in the Citadel, the Celestis Prime's engines awaited her touch. And in the far reaches beyond mapped space, the exiles of Viridia stirred, unknowing that the fate of their hidden world would soon be entrusted to a human janitor who saw beyond the grime and into the very heart of possibility. The Celestis Prime loomed in the hangar bay like a titan poised for flight. Its hull rippled with liquid metal plating, each panel refracting the hangar's ambient glow into shifting bands of color. As Captain Arcia King stepped onto the bridge, the ship's AI, Celestria, greeted her in crystalline tones. Welcome aboard, Captain King. All systems nominal. Crew reporting to stations. Course vectors await your command. Arcia paused at the central command console, running a hand along the smooth surface. Around her, the bridge crew, handpicked specialists, and eager volunteers settled into their stations. Lieutenant Vichar, the Talarian empathic linguist, whose translucent skin shimmered as he tuned into the crew's moods. Ensign Juno Baines, the exobiologist with a penchant for classifying alien flora, already studying holograms of Viridian biomes. Chief Engineer Dalvas, still proud to serve under a human's command, fingers dancing over maintenance schematics. Lieutenant Commander Mira Sol, the logistics officer who had stocked every aisle of the ship with supplies, even replicator templates for exotic Viridian cuisine. Arcia offered a brief nod. All right, engage pre-jump protocols. Plot course. Through the Talarian Rift toward the outer halo. Waypoint Bravo 17. Maximum sublight speed until we clear the rift's turbulence. The crew moved with practiced efficiency. Navigation thrummed to life, energy conduits pulsed underfoot, and the engine's low hum swelled into a sonorous chord. On the viewport, the hangar bay's opening revealed the swirling teal and violet clouds of the rift's entry point. Celestria's voice chimed again. soft with anticipation. Turbulence threshold in 10, 9, 8. Arcia leaned forward. In that moment, she felt the pulse of the ship settle into alignment with her own heartbeat. Now, she commanded. Through the rift, the Celestis Prime shot forward, its graviton funnels parting the rift's eddies like a ship's bow cutting through storm-tossed seas. Outside, the rift's veils of charged particles painted the viewport in delightful chaos arcs of purple lightning crossed waves of scintillant mist. Every few seconds, a shimmering wave would buffet the hull, sending ripples of raw energy. Across the ship's plating, Juno Baines watched the readings in rapture. Epsilon layer volatility is remarkably low today. We may traverse at 1.3 C without shielding adjustments. Davos flicked a series of toggles. Shields at 68% capacity. Power distribution rerouted to smoothing coils. He glanced at Arcia. Your approach, subtle calibrations, minimal power spikes, is elegant. Arcia allowed herself a small smile. We seek to slip through the rift, not to announce our passage with thunder. Minutes later, the rift's turbulence eased, and the Celestis Prime emerged into star-speckled void. The bridge lights brightened as sublight engines engaged. Beyond the viewport lay uncharted sectors, starfields unrecorded by Palrix's grand. Archives, nebulae in deep indigo and emerald hues, and, far ahead, a cluster of pale green orbitals -ver idea. First contact Viridia hung in space like a gem suspended on crystal threads of light. Two moons smaller and larger tugged at its clouds, stirring storms of shimmering violet mist. The planet's surface, glimpsed through breakpoints in the atmosphere, revealed sprawling cities of spiral architecture, built into coral-like formations that seemed to grow organically from the land. Scanning for transmissions, Arcia ordered. Celestria's voice replied. No active communication channels on standard Dominion frequencies. However, faint biosonar pulses detected at 3 equatorial sites, likely the exile city of Cythera. Lieutenant Vikar closed his many eyes, breathing deeply. I sense caution. Their collective mood is guarded, hopeful. They wait to see if we arrive in peace. Arcia nodded. We do. Open a secure comm channel. She keyed the universal decongelator. The viewport shimmered, and a soft green waveform flickered into view, an alien hologram. A slender figure draped in fractal patterned robes, face partially veiled. A shimmering voice reached across the void. This is Elder Ritzia of the Cythiran Council. You approach in the Celestis Prime, flagship of the Palrix Dominion. Why have you come? Arcia met the Council's gaze with steady calm. Elder Ritzia, I am Captain Arcia King of the Celestis Prime. I come not as an agent of conquest, but as a seeker of knowledge and cooperation. We repaired this ship together, and I wish to learn the Exile's fractal energy arts, to share, to exchange, and to forge a new path between our peoples. The hologram paused. Then Elder Rizia's eyes, soft and ancient, narrowed in thought. Our art was exiled when it threatened to unravel dominion over others. If you truly seek collaboration, we will test your intent. Land at the eastern spiral bay. There, we will judge your heart. Arcia inclined her head. We will comply. She turned to her crew. Prepare for atmospheric entry. Keep all weapon systems offline. Let diplomacy be our shield. The eastern spiral bay, descending through Viridia's violet atmosphere. The Celestis Prime shuttle bay opened to reveal a cityscape that seemed grown rather than built. Soaring. Towers of crystalline lattice, walkways of living vines, and energy conduits that glowed with shifting fractal patterns. As the landing struts touched the terraced landing pad, the air crackled with a delicate hum, as though the planet itself was singing. Arcia stepped onto the alien soil, greeted by a council of 5 exiles clad in patterned robes, each bearing a staff topped with fractal crystals. Elder Ritzia stood at their center, eyes serene. Welcome, Ricia intoned. You have come far. We offer you the trial of resonance, a ritual exchange of energy patterns. If you can harmonize your soul's vibration with the planet's fractal core, we accept your overture. Arcia breathed in the scent of ionized flora. The electric tang mingled with the sweetness of unknown blossoms. She closed her eyes, recalling the stabilizer's circuits, the harmony she had found in silence. Slowly, she raised her hand, tracing a fractal pattern in the air, as if sketching a flower of light. The crystals on the council's staffs resonated. Energy arcs wove between her and the planet, a lattice of living light. Arcia attuned her mind to the hum, matching its frequency with her own heartbeat. Around them, the fractal patterns on the ground pulsed in response, coalescing into a towering spiral of energy that linked the Celestis Prime to Viridia itself. When she lowered her hand, the spiral collapsed into a single point of shimmering light. The exiles exhaled in unison. Your intent is pure, Elder Ricia declared, voice reverent. We accept your partnership. You shall learn our arts, and we shall learn yours. Together, we will weave new patterns of power that uplift. All a new alliance over the next weeks. The Celestis Prime rested at Viridia's orbit as exchanges commenced. Arcia oversaw workshops where exile scholars taught fractal energy designs, patterns that focused energy with minimal input for propulsion, shields, and even terraforming. In return, her engineers demonstrated streamlined repair protocols, maintenance regimes that reduced energetic waste and extended hardware lifespans. Under the violet suns of Viridia, old prejudices began to dissolve. Talarix's legends had painted the exiles as dangerous heretics. Now they were visionaries, their artistry bright as captured starlight. In turn, the exiles marveled at human ingenuity, how Arcia's simple tools had unraveled cosmic riddles, how her calm resolve had united two alien peoples. When the time came to depart, the Celestis Prime was transformed. Its drive coils now bore fractal engravings, amplifying thrust-to-energy ratios. Shield generators glowed with patterns that absorbed and redirected cosmic rays. Even the stabilizer, once a single core, now formed a quad-lobed array, each lobe tuned to a harmonic frequency. On the bridge, Arcia looked out at the violet horizon of Viridia. Lieutenant Vichar approached, voice soft. They send there blessings and ask that we return whenever we wish. Their paths are open to you. Arcia nodded, hand resting on the Seeker's key at her belt. Then set our course for home into the Dominion's frontier. Let us share this gift that others may learn. Celestria chimed. Jump protocols ready, Captain. Arcia turned from the viewport. Crew assembled behind her. A Talarian empath, a human engineer, an exobiologist, vascular with wonder, and the AI that bridged them all. Engage, she said as the Celestis Prime dove into the warp vectors. Leaving Viridia's spirals of light behind, Arcia allowed herself a quiet foam of pride. A janitor by trade, she had charted new frontiers of understanding. In her wake, the Dominion itself would begin to shift toward cooperation, curiosity, and creation rather than conquest. The stars beckoned, infinite and uncharted. And for the first time, they did so in fractal harmony.